Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started since we've got a lot going on today, a lot of really fun activities planned. And my beautiful background fell down, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and do some centering breaths. Hanumai. Hanuaku. Hanumai. Hanuaku. Hanumai. Hanuaku. E ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e. Una mea una ea o na mele. E ho mai. E ho mai. E ho mai e. Ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e. O na mea huna eo o na mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e. O mai ka ike mai luna mai e. O na mea huna eo o na mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e. Okay, aloha mai kako. Mahalo nui to everyone for joining us today for our final session in our Kaʻao series. I'm really sad it's our last session. My name is Lilinoe Kohikawa, and I am a population health specialist with Papola Lokahi, focusing on addictions and behavioral mental health. So before we get started today, just a note that we are recording today's session. We will be using the meeting meeting format today. So please remember to keep yourself on mute while our speaker is presenting. Please feel free also to post any questions that you have into the chat, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the session. We will leave some time to answer questions on Talk Story toward the end of today's session. This training has been approved by the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division for CSAC, CCS, CPS, CCJP, CSAPA, and Social Worker Continuing Education Credit Hours. Following the webinar or the meeting, I keep forgetting we're in meeting session. Following the meeting, you'll be asked to complete an evaluation. If you can take a moment to complete that, especially today, we want it to really help us inform our next steps in this learning series and learning opportunity. For those wishing to claim continuing education credit hours, the evaluation will also connect you to the attendance verification form. And upon completion of that form, you'll receive an email certifying your attendance and credit hours. And that'll serve as your credit letter for licensure. Please note as well that we'll be dropping that link into the chat. Since we're in the meeting format, it won't auto direct you. So you'll need to click on that. I'll also send that link to you tomorrow. As this is our last session, please also follow the prompts on that link to state that this is the last session and to please take me to the post-test. If you remember at the beginning of the series, we had you all complete a pre-test. So this will be the post-test so we can measure all of the amazing things that we've been able to accomplish throughout this series. This series is co-sponsored by Papola Lokahi and the Hawaii State Alcohol and Drug Abuse Division. And mahalo once again to everyone for joining us on this journey. We have been so honored and grateful to have Tangarō as our guide on this journey. It's been able to just open up what incredible opportunities that we have for laying the foundation for Indigenous healing. And I'm gonna go ahead at this time and turn things over to Tangarō.
Oi, ano ai ke aloha ia kākou a pau ea. But I can see myself. Oh, there you are. Hi, aloha. Mahalo nui to Papolo Lokahi, and especially to Lilinoi Kawahikawa for making this bridging what's happening in Hilo to what's being hosted on Oahu and then delivered to our family. I see even some people from on the continent that are on this meeting here. E ho mai ka ike mai luna mai e, this chant that we always do, composed by Edith Kanakaʻole in the 1970s. You know, during that time, we were awakening to, I was a kid, a really young kid then, but the Hawaiian world was awakening in a different kind of, and they're asking different kinds of questions and beginning to redefine themselves. It seems like it was a long sleep and it was time to wake up and the dreaming was over. Now it's time to do. We've inherited hundreds and hundreds of songs and stories and chants and dances. And, you know, they all come from stories. Hula is the dance of stories. We have personal stories and then we have big stories, life transformational stories. We call those Kaʻao. And this chant is saying, "E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai e." Grant us the knowledge that are coded in these songs, therefore stories, small and big stories. And so, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, we're in the 20s right now. So for decades, we've been asking our ancestors to grant us knowledge, grant us the things to understand the meaning in the things that we do. And this Kaʻao, this framework is one of them. And so it is also very Hawaiian. It would be considered maha'oi if you ask just because you're inquisitive. Yeah, we don't value being inquisitive unless you plan to do something about it. And so in Hawaii, we have this saying, you know, if you're going to ask, you better be willing to do something about it. So, you know, when we look at this chant being done for 40 years, 4 decades, if not longer, grant us the knowledge, grant us the knowledge. The idea is we're going to do something about it. And so this is one of the things that we're doing about it. We're looking at the framework of Kaʻao, the big transformational stories of one's life. And some of them go into the real Pollyanna, you know, storyline, and then some of them go into real the chronic, traumatic, you know, and tragedies. But you know, there are these stories that bring us into our bigger selves, our bigger contribution. They're the stories that allow us to go deep into ourselves and ask really hard questions. Who am I? What is this message? What is my purpose in living? Why do I exist? What do I bring to this world? And does my world value my gift? Okay? So that's what Kaʻaos do. And so I just want to let you know that e ho mai ka ike is not just about, oh, it's a nice time to focus. It is a nice time to focus. And we've been focusing for 40 years with using this chant, asking for information. Now the information is coming, and this is an outcome of chanting. So thank you, Edith Kanakaʻole, and all the other kupuna that did similar things. Everything we need, we have. We just don't know we have it. We have to ask the right questions and then they'll pop up. So today we have a little, it's a vibrant coming together because it's the last of this series. And we're in planning to think about, you know, how else we want to, where else we should grow and how else we should grow and how else can we strengthen this process forward into the service of the health services that we're all a part of. And so this is where we need your feedback through the chat or, you know, through the post test or just direct emails to Lilinoi. Give us your ideas. We are going to be looking at how to look at the Kaʻao. We're going to revisit the Kaʻao again very briefly because if you're here, that means you've been here previously. So we're not going to go into too much detail. We're just going to do our short review. We're going to run 3 exercises. And we're going to use a Padlet. A Padlet is a platform for capturing live your ideas. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of engaging. And we'll demonstrate it for you. So if you used it, great. If you've never used it before, then this is going to be, you know, if I can do it, you can do it. So we're going to be running through 3 stories. And we're going to be seeing, okay, given the framework, how do we categorize parts of the story. And the great thing is how you categorize the story may not be how the person next to you categorize the story, and it will still work. Okay, and we're gonna demonstrate that. Okie dokie. Let me see that I'm on task. Each story is about 15 minutes, so you know, and again, these are long stories. I would have to like just bring it down. Okay, just to provide you. You know, we have the framework, we have the philosophy. Yeah, we feel good about it, but now here's a story. So how do they come together? And where we at one point, it's not going to be the stories published in a book, but it's going to be the stories of your clients, of the people that you help. What are their stories, and how do we use the framework to put their stories in a particular category, and then we can look at parts of the stories and move through it. Okay, so that's where we're heading. The first story, I'm going to tell you, and it's really too bad I can't see you, only because I'm just looking at myself and I realized I didn't iron my shirt as I thought I didn't need to. Oh, there's some of you are. I need faces. Oh, for storytelling. This is like me telling stories in the bathroom. I used to take so long as a kid because I see myself in the mirror and I used to go into storytelling mode and people would be knocking on the door. We got a date. I'm still not finished with my story, but here I am. I have you in audience. So thank you very much for giving me some people to look at. This first story, I don't know where I got it from. At one point, it's as if I've always known it, but I know that it wasn't a story I grew up with. So I left Ko'olaupoko, which is the rural side of Oahu, and I moved to Hilo when I was 11 years old. So this story did not come from Ko'olaupoko. This story came from my Hilo experience. And I'm not sure if I got it from college or if I got it from halal or I got it from a kupuna in the community. But I know that halal, we have this practice. And so the story made very, very much sense. And it's about the kupe'e. The kupe'e is a nerita. It's a shell that comes out at night. It's nocturnal. And we have this tradition that when you go pick kupe'e, you kind of make noise because they hear you and you hear the click, click, click. They're very sensitive. So you got to be really quiet. In fact, when we're going to go holo holo at night, we don't even say we're going to get kupe'e because even though you're 2 miles away from the beach, as soon as you mention kupe'e, they start jumping. That's our belief system. We don't even tell people we're going to go get kupe'es. It's unnecessary. We just say we're going to go holo holo. And then sometimes we're going to say, oh, we're going to get click click. So we give it another name. But we use kupe'e. I come from Halau Kikuhi, and we're known to use a lot of kupe'e. Some halaus will not use kupe'e. Kupe'e means to be in the state, in the condition, pe'e, of hiding. So some halaus will not use it, no matter how nice it looks. They won't use it because in their belief, the knowledge of the ancestors will be hidden from them. In other halaus, we use kupe'e for exact that same purpose that means us to be in the state of hiding. It's so that it reminds us as dancers that what we dance for the world, we deliberately give this to the world. But some things, the mysteries of halal should always be kept hidden from the public view. So it was a sort of a totem for us. It was a way of protecting us. It was a way of helping us understand that we'll never always understand that some of the deep purposes of why we exist will be hidden from us until we journey into it. But this story is about this really, really young girl. She was born into a hula family. And she was born in a time when the Hawaiian world was going into transition. And it was the time when there were intermarriages and there were also interbeliefs. People were subscribing to becoming Christian. And some of them were able to live Christian as well as their indigenous religious lives. And some of them just gave up one for the other. And so Hawaii was in transition. And this girl was a beautiful hula dancer. From the time she was an infant, she was dancing. So her tutus, her family were hula dancers, and they would take her and they would teach her, and she was becoming this really beautiful dancer. But her father, who was a foreign person, married into the family, he was disapproving of the pagan dance of Hawaii. Yeah, it was non-Christian for them to do that. And so what they did do is, as it was in the early days, many people were Christian during the daytime, and then nighttime, soon as the sunset, they would take on their older belief systems. Many of our families lived that two lives, and we didn't see a conflict. When the sun rose, that was time for Christianity. When the sunset, it was time for our deeper, our older connection. So at night, they would go and take the girl out of the house and they would train her some more. So she was continuing to dance. And the father would hear her as she would be doing chores around the house. The father would hear her chanting and humming. And then when the father would, look, and would sneak and be a little bit covert, he would see her dancing. So he called the family together. What's going on? Why is she still dancing? I told you guys I don't want her to dance. It's pagan. So the father stopped this girl. This girl was aborted from her nature to dance. And then this girl started to be affected by her dreams. At night, she would just have these dreams of this huge kupe coming out of the ocean. And the kupe would move onto the rocks in the moonlight. And then when she looked really good, the kupe started to dance. Now, you have to use your really imaginary mind because the kupe is just this one shell. But through the movements of the shell, the little girl was learning these dances. And then she would get up in the morning, she'd be all sweaty. And then she'd be humming these dances and she'd be dancing these dances. And the tutus would be saying, and these dances are familiar to them. They were in their repertoire, but they just haven't taught it to her because that instruction was forbidden. And they were saying, how is she learning these dances? And she started to want to go to sleep earlier and stay longer in engagement, longer in sleep. Because when she was in sleep, she was in her nature of dancing. And when she would wake up, she would have to be in her nurture. Her nurture was against the dancing. Okay? You do everything but dance. And so she started to get ill. And she started to want to sleep more, not eat. She just wanted to stay with her kupe'e person that would teach her how to dance. And then finally, she was getting very, very ill. And the family had to come together. And her father, who just treasured and loved this girl, had to make a decision. And so they when this girl did wake up, they asked her what was happening in her sleep. And she told them that this huge kupe'e came and would teach her how to dance. And they would spend the night dancing, and she'd rather be with the kupe'e than be with her family. The father had to make a decision. So the kahuna in the family said, so if we don't do something about it, this girl is gonna die. Her nature is to dance, and we're stopping this flow. And she's gonna die either physically or spiritually. She's just gonna become a functionary to society. And they all look at the father because the decision was in the father. Are you gonna allow this to happen? Are you gonna adjust your belief system to allow nature to happen? Or are you gonna require that nature falls into a particular kind of nurture, a particular kind of conditioning? And the father looked at his daughter and realized that what good is spirituality? Whatever you call it, whether it's through religion or other kinds of dogma, what good is it if it separates you from your family? And thus the girl was allowed to dance. And she became a renowned dancer. She taught many people how to dance. And because of her, many people taught other people how to dance. Until today, we believe that the halaus that use kupe'e descend either from this line of dancers or from the story. That's story number one. That's life transformational. Okie dokie. I wish that was my story. I used to imagine myself her. But my daddy didn't want me to dance, actually. He was horrified that his eldest son was going to be a dancer in the 70s, until he saw me on television at the Waikiki Shell dancing for some kind of marathon. And then I became a little child celebrity for the Kahalu'u area. The hygienic store was the hub of our little village, and so the key project there. That's it. A lot of people began dancing in the 70s. So I could relate to this story, and maybe that's why I am familiar with this story, or I still remember this story. I just kind of remember where the origin of the story came from. Let's look at the Padlet, guys, because I told you a story, and this, your people in your office could have a similar story. So this is, although it's a story, it might be the building blocks of why people need your services today. Because maybe in some people's lives, their family didn't make the best decision. And things were aborted. And therefore, there's a journey that goes in the wrong direction. The hua of this story, I'll tell you, is the catalyst. The girl was born, her nature was to dance. That was the hua. Her childhood began with her maternal family conditioning her, nurturing her hua. They were nurturing her nature. So that was her hua. And then, okay, so that was it, her hua. By nature, she was a dancer and her family supported that, her maternal, at least half of her family. Now we're gonna go into the ha'alele because, there was a journey that we're beneficiaries of. But the ha'alele is when, here it goes, her father told the family that she could not dance. So she left the instructional world, the physical world of instruction, and entered into the nocturnal world of instruction. So her instruction left the physical world and went into her sleeping world, her spiritual world. That would be the ha'alele. Okay. The huaka'i. The huaka'i is when her nightly dreaming and learning those dances. And I don't know how long, I don't know if they're talking years or they're talking months, in story, it's everyone once upon a time in a land far, in a condition far, far away. So we don't know those details because they're not important. But what is that she continued her journey, her nocturnal journey, and through dancing. And as a result of it, because we're not designed to live only in night, but that's where her thriving was coming from. And so she didn't want to wake up to the day. So, we could say that there was some kind of degree of depression. And so she was near death. See, and that's the huaka'i. It always takes us near the edge of jumping off that cliff. Metaphorically, and for some people, they actually do because, they just do because that's the decision that they've been conditioned toward. The ho'ina, the family comes together and says, the huaka'i, going back to the huaka'i, the journey, so she gets really sick and then the family has a decision. The family has to decide whether they're gonna nurture her nature and channel it, or they're going to reduce her into the framework of the trends of society. And so the father had, the huaka'i involves the father making the decision. Let's nurture her nature. Let her be a dancer. Now her ho'ina, she's now able to live and function in both the night and the light worlds, the physical and the spiritual world. What does the ho'ina is, as a result of this journey, what is she now able to contribute to her family?
Thanks,
she becomes a beautiful dancer. She becomes an inspirational dancer, inspires. Now I've added something to the 4-H's just recently. I put in the ha'ina. The ha'ina, we know ha'ina because that's the end of the song. We get ha'ina ia maiana kapuna kumakakahikena ya hila. The ha'ina is always in our singing traditions. We have a ha'ina verse for many of our songs. The ha'ina is generations removed from this story. What are we remembering? What is the legacy? what are the beneficiaries? Homaika Ike. Yeah. The hua of Homaika Ike was people were waking up. Hawaiians were waking up, and we need, and then and the ha'alele was, we didn't want to just sing the songs. We knew that there was sacredness into it. So we created prayers and focus chants to help us leave the secular understanding of the song and enter into the coded information of the song, so that we could frame our lives, use it to guide our lives. The huaka'i we're here, the ho'ina of Homaika Ike is because Edith wrote this chant. There's thousands of people that chant this song around the world, and we all contribute to the awakening of the stories in us. And that's her legacy. That's her ha'ina. That's what we remember her for. And so, so this is the ha'ina. Alrighty. So I'm going to tell you one more story. I'm going to tell you the story of Umi'ali Loa. Now this time, you're going to be you're going to be logging into the Padlet. And you're going to be putting in, exactly as Lilinoi did. There was a plus, you just press the plus, you give your mana'o, press the plus. And you don't have to answer all of it. You can just jump where you're most comfortable. Because some people, the huaka'i is obvious and the ha'alele might be a little bit obscure. It don't matter. Just begin to populate it. And you're going to see that, oh yeah, we have different, we categorize ha'alele differently or huaka'i differently. And that's the great thing about this framework. We're using one framework and we might just place, different elements of the story within that framework. Now, this story I'm going to share with you is Umi'ali Loa. You may know this story. It's historical. Okay, so Umi'ali Loa is the ancestor of Kamehameha the Great. Umi's father was a big king, Liloa. He was the king of Hawaii Island. And the capital at that time was, and I think we're talking 15th century. The capital of that time was in Waipio Valley. Well, Umi'ali Loa, Liloa, the big king, he was a very old king at the time. He had to come and dedicate a temple in Hilo, North Hilo, Manini, Heiau. And then, he went to do the whole thing that the paramount kings have to do. And then at one point he left, he kind of like disappeared. He had this thing of disappearing. He disappeared from his court because everywhere he went, there was like 80 people following him just to go shishi in the bushes, 80 people following him. So he kind of ran away. And when he ran away from his court, he happened upon this girl that was bathing in the river, and she just came out of her menses. And the story goes that she was beautiful, and they stayed with each other for a period of time until she conceived. And then she conceived, and then and he had to leave back to court, and but he didn't want her son to be, didn't want their child to be acknowledged because it's very, very dangerous. If it's not a legitimate marriage, yeah, it's kind of dangerous. So politically, and so this woman found another husband, and Liloa, actually, before he left certain totems, his club and his malo and some other things he left behind as evidence. Yeah, that, if this child is born, if this child the child is a product of mine, and should the child need it, give him or give her these items so that they know I'm the father. That's the proof that it's going to need. So when Liloa went back to court, they said he was wearing tea leaves. They said, what happened to your malo? Where's your club? And he just, they knew something was up, but they went back to YPO. Now, Akaya Kuliane is the name of the mother of this child that was born, and the child was indeed born a boy and was given the name Umi. And the boy didn't know who his father was. The boy was raised with another father who he thought was his biological father. But there was something not right with that relationship. Umi was considered rascal. He would give all the food away. The father would harvest and they would give all the food away. He just gave everything away. The father would fishing, he gives everything away. Farming, everything away. And he just, he just was a little rambunctious for the standards of the father. And so the father used to beat him into, being the ideal son of the time. And Umi just said, something's not right. There's something that's missing. So he finally looked at his mother and said, Mom, I have to have another father. This cannot possibly be my father. So the mother says, you do have another father. And she went and she had her handmaid bring the possessions of the king. Says, your father is the king, Umi on Liloa, or Liloa is the king. Your full name is Umi on Liloa. Here are your articles of chief, of being a chief. Go. So he left his family and he went in search for his father. And, you know, and well, he found his father. Long story short, he found his father. There were many attempts on his life because he was considered a lesser chief, because his mother was of nobility and a relative, but of a lesser. His eldest brother was Kaʻao, and he was the legitimate heir to the chiefdom. So you think the eldest Kaʻao wanted to have this usurper come in, this obscure, low-ranking stepbrother come in. So there's this whole political thingy, and there was attempts on the life of Umi. And well, if you know the culture of the political culture of Hawaii, there was, when Liloa died, it's a ritual. When the big chief dies, there is what we call a sacred warfare. This is where the siblings, the rival siblings, rivals to the heir, to become the heir, they'll come and they'll battle. And during Kamehameha's time, it was Kamehameha and Keoua. And then when Kamehameha died, it was his son Liho and Kekuaokalani. Well, when Liloa died, it was his sons Kaʻao, his legitimate son, and his other legitimate son of a lesser rank, Liloa. So there was a real battle. And Kaʻao did die and was offered up as a sacrifice. Yeah, locked in the reign of Liloa. He became one of the most successful kings. He fathered many children on the island as a way of making the island a family. So many of our people today have genealogical alignments to Liloa. And that was the legacy. We remember him. That's the haina that we have. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take you to the Padlet, and then we want you to begin populating what you believe was the hua, what you believe, you know, was the different elements, and then also the haina. What's valuable about this story, and why are we holding on to this story? So, Lilinoy, do they need any information? They've all logged in.
Yeah, I posted the link in the chat. You can click on that link, and then there's also a password there. And then just like Tangarō was saying, you click on the little plus underneath and it'll populate this, and you can just write in here. And then now, it'll show up on the screen.
You only have like 4 minutes for this section. So, you know, you don't have to like write a whole dissertation. A sentence will do. A phrase will do. Even a half a sentence will do. We just want to see that we can begin exercising. And yeah. Family conflicts. Mother tells me that his father's day one. Okay, that's the hua. Okay. Anything else? Really, no. How much people we have in this workshop?
It looks like 23.
20. Okay, great. Okay, don't be shy about this, guys. The question, you know, when we look at the Ho'ina, as a result of his huakai, his journey, what has he now contributed to society? So the Ho'ina is also another easy one to hit. Sometimes hua is a little obscure. Ha'alele, depending on where you place the hua. The Ho'ina is usually, you know, they go to the point of no return, almost death, and then they survive. and they come back, they succeed. So ho'inas are kind of easy. Umi goes to Painilo and declares himself, provides articles of proof, question who is his father. Yeah. Mama confirms father, huaka'i, father the club. Mother tells him his lineage, together of society. Okay. It's coming in. It's coming in. Okay, so let's go into the discussion here. So again, the hua is, you know, we put the catalyst there. And the hua is the nature of a person, the natural, you know, at conception, you know, depending on how the body, you know, there's certain primary traits that are evident. And then there's those secondary traits that sometimes, you know, but the hua is really means the egg. Then what is the nature of this person? Well, interestingly, Umi's nature was to give things away, to be very gracious, to be very hospitable. That is the nature of an ali'i. The ali'i, we call what we call the opu ali'i, is to have a stomach like an ali'i. That's to be very giving, very hospitable. The ideal ali'i takes care of their people. They use their resources. I like Princess Pauahi. She used her resources. She created a legacy of Kamehameha schools. That's her opu ali'i. Yeah. And so what happens is that was his nature. They just didn't know. Now, if he was if people knew he was a child of Nali'i, they would have understood his nature. But they thought he was just a maka'ainana. And so his nature was to give and to be hospitable. Okay. So that was it. And then also his you know, his early years, his formative years, you know, he was being beaten. Something was not right. That was his hua. He grew up in some kind of conflict. His nature and nurture were in conflict. His ha'alele, and somebody nailed it. His ha'alele is when he says, there has to be something more than this. So if he just assumed, if he just stayed in that hua and never asked the question, when he asked the question, that means he's looking for an optional answer. He's leaving the situation. He's not beginning to say there gotta be another one. So he's leaving the norm of his domestic life, and he's inquiring. That inquiry, when he looks at his mother, says, "Mom, there has to be. Do I have another father?" That's to me, that's exactly when he asked that one question. Do I have another origin here? That's the ha'alele. And of course, the huaka'i is when the mother says, yes, you are. Here are the articles. This is the trail to Waipio Valley. This is how you get into the palace. You watch out for your brother. He's going to take attempts on your life because, you know, blah, 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 blah. Live humble and don't make waves. And so he does all of that. And then still it ends up into, you know, it grows up and then they end up into a battle. The father dies, end up into a battle, and he wins. That's the end of the huaka'i. His ho'ina, he comes back. He's now not the questionable child. He's now the paramount chief, and he brings peace to his realm. The ha'ina, some of us had to ask our parents, is that my father? Is that don't I have another mother? Some of us had to ourselves undergone, you know, at one time beating your child was a norm. And many of us barely survived that. And so, you know, we look for optional, there has to be another. And sometimes when there is no option or there is no guidance, and we take the wrong huaka'i. We get on the wrong train, seeking out who is our father. And in mythology, when people seek out their father, they're actually seeking for the purpose in life. So it's not necessarily they're looking for the male, the gender, the sire of who they are. Sometimes they're looking for, so the metaphor of Maui searching out, of Umi searching out his father, it was also searching out his purpose in life, meeting his call, giving form to why he exists. Okay, great. Ha'alele, ha'alele interpretation, building an ohana, finding your true purpose. Yeah, living a life that people, what are people going to remember us for? This is the eulogy. At our funeral, what are people going to say about us? And, of course, we don't want to get all depressed about it, but, the Hawaiian never acts just for the physical. How we act and how we think we also always have to consider the afterlife. How is this going to affect our life after we leave? How is this going to affect the life of our family after we exit the physical world? So that's the ha'ina. One more story. I was going to tell you the story of Cinderella. I'm going to plot this. But I want to tell you the story of Hi'iaka. I'm sure now that you're getting exercise, you can look at Cinderella. You can map her out in the framework on your own. But Hi'iaka goes on her life journey. She doesn't know she's on a life journey. She thinks she's on an errand. Isn't this hilarious? So sometimes life journeys take on the form of hilarity, and it becomes a little bit hilarious sometimes. She thought she was doing her sister. She was on a journey to go get. She was on an errand to get Lohiaʻo and come back. What she didn't know is that errand was really in disguise her life's journey. If she did succeed in this journey, she would come back a goddess. If she didn't succeed in this journey, she would come back underdeveloped. She would come back the same young juvenile, underdeveloped, living forever in the world of juvenils. Okay, so it's a long story. And so I'm going to take you all the way. She goes through, she leaves Kaʻao, her norm. Hi'iaka was actually her hua. She was born as an egg. That's her hua. She was born in an egg. She was born and Pele kept her under her armpit and incubated this egg, and the egg hatched and out came this beautiful girl. So Hi'iaka was literally, at least mythologically, born in her hua. Her heartbeat, her maternal heartbeat, was that of her sister Pele. So her and Pele were connected, shared the same heartbeat. So Pele said, I need somebody to go run me an errand. She said, I'll do it. She had no experience, never left home before. She ha'aleles home, and she goes on this journey to fetch Pele's dream lover, Lohiaʻo, on Kauai, islands away. It's not like 40, 50 minutes on an airplane. It's like eons. It's like mythological, in a different territory. It's up in space somewhere. And she goes. Many hardships. She's given her a very short period of time to turnaround time to come back successfully. So she's running out of time. She's urgent. She's getting delayed, pulled in all these directions. Her journey is not clear. It's not a straight path. It meanders, ups and downs, ins and outs. So finally, she's told to go and visit her uncle on Kauai. This uncle that knows the secrets of the family. And this uncle has the clues that will, very mythological, yeah? The uncle has a clue to what she needs to do in her next steps. Because in the journey, when she gets to Oahu, one island away from Kauai, she looks up, she's at Kaena Point, and she looks up, she goes, oh my gosh, the person she was supposed to bring back is dead. Lohiaʻo died. His spirit was floating on the cliffs. And she was, oh, I'm supposed to bring back a living person, not a dead one. And so she gets to Kauai, she searches out her uncle, and she hopes the uncle has the secret of how to bring somebody back to life. She goes to the uncle's house, and the uncle is not there. There is only his rude wife, Wailua Ahuano, rude. She's pounding kapa. So Hiaka chants, goes on, she chants, she said, please remove the obstruction. Allow me to enter into my uncle's domain. I'm searching for my uncle. Wailua Nui Ahuano don't even respond. Because traditionally somebody chant an entrance, he's supposed to go, oh, you come inside the house, come eat, we have food. None of it. She just looks at Hi'iaka, she turns her back, which is in Hawaiian, that's a really bad thing. You want to offend a Hawaiian, turn your back, but you might get licked, so I wouldn't recommend that. She turned her back. And it gets Hi'iaka so fueled, she's so mad, but she knows she cannot afford being mad. She's already, the guy did. Oh my goodness, she's been delayed. So she finally goes down to the ocean. For some reason, her gut takes her to this ocean and she sees this crippled man fishing. And the man is chanting and he's chanting to Pele. He says, Pele, please bring me a fish. I'm so hungry. And Hi'iaka is approaching him from the back and she starts chanting. And he turns around and he goes, by the way she looked, he knew that she was Hi'iaka. Well, actually, he thought it was Pele. She said, I'm not Pele, I'm Hi'iaka. And in the end of Hi'iaka's chant, he actually was able to get up and walk. Her chant cured him. And then that night, they got together and he chanted the entire story of Hi'iaka. And then also gave Hi'iaka the clues to how to wake Lohi'au up and how to be successful in the last leg of her journey. She never understood. She thought she was on an errand. This guy held the keys to the bigger context of her journey. She succeeded. She resurrected Lohi'au, brought him back, went into the ritual warfare with Pele, because that's the last thing you gotta do is have a little battle. You cannot come back to the same person. You gotta battle. So that, and she then was no longer Pele's younger sister. She became shoulder to shoulder to Pele, exactly as Pele intended. Because Pele went on a life's journey, she was able to push her sister on a life's journey. Okie dokie. Can we plop that one into the Padlet? Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to begin. So the hua, again, she's physically born in an egg and she was put in Pele's armpit. That's why she's called Hi'iaka Ikapuli o Pele, Hi'iaka in the bosom of Pele, and that was the incubation. Now, what I failed to tell you is that Hi'iaka and Pele are so close, and they're actually even closer because of the situation that got Pele to become the foster parent of Hi'iaka. Pele was going to begin her own journey. She was leaving her own kahiki, her big life's journey, and to search out her father, the son that she found here in Hawaii. And right before she was ready to leave on her canoe, the mother's Haumea said, oh, Pele, by the way, here's your little sister, Hi'iaka, in the egg. you will take her with you. So Pele's journey, oftentimes Hi'iaka, when Pele's journey was going ups and downs, oftentimes Hi'iaka was the recipient of all that energy, the advances and the setbacks, the happy moments and the woes. Very much like a pregnant woman. A woman in gestation, everything she experiences on the outside is experienced by the baby in the inside. So this was an external egg. So the womb was here, not in the body. So the hua is Hi'iaka shares the same heartbeat with her sister. They were that close. And so that's the hua. She would do anything for her sister. The ha'alele is when Pele has this dream and wakes up and says, and tells her family, okay, I need somebody to get lohi out. Which one of you gonna do this? And when Hi'iaka says, I'll do it, the youngest, no experience, she says, I do it. She did it because it was largely her relationship, the same heartbeat that she shared with her sister. So she did it. She didn't look at her essentials if they were in place, her maturity or her experiences. She did it. She ha'alele. That means she said, I will leave what I know into what I don't know. So soon as she says, I will, that was the ha'alele. Ha'alele, you can put your finger right on it. The huaka'i is when she started journeying and preparing, and all the islands, all the shark, and she had to fight, the mo'os she had to kill, and the people she had to resurrect. Some people she had to kill. You know, she was really delayed. And then her huaka'i that got her all the way into Kauai. And then also she met her uncle. Her journey was almost truncated. She had a decision. Is she going to continue this journey to its completion, or she's going to use the rude auntie that turned the back on her as reason to jump off the train? Well, it actually fueled her to go even further. And in that last fueling, she was able to get all the information. It was the energy that came to get her to finish that journey. And so the ho'ina is that she made her way back with lohi'au. Her huaka'i is that she made her way back with lohi'au, and then her and Pele had to go to the ritual battle. Pele had to make sure that, okay, for you not to be equal, you have to fight me. And so, you know, it's how it is in the ritual world. Yeah, the fight means the challenge. You challenge the norm. You challenge the norms of family, the norms of society. You're gonna challenge it because you cannot return to that. It didn't work for you. You have to change it. And so there's a war that happens. And that's her huakai. She gets back. Her ho'ina, she becomes the healer. You know, there's thousands of people around the world. Well, let me say that's a ha'ina. The ho'ina is when she comes back a healer. So in many people that do Hawaiian medicine, Hi'iaka is one of the people they call on. She heals. When Pele creates land, Pele doesn't destroy. She creates. When she creates land, Hi'iaka will come. And where she steps, the forest will grow. So her and Pele are still working together. The ha'ina of this is that now there's people around the world chanting, hey, you know what? No, Hi'iaka kapoli o Pele. Whether they know what they're saying or not, they're doing it. Hi'iaka is a worldwide phenomenon. She's about healing. She's about journey. She's about leaving the norm and figuring and journeying into the bigness of you and growing out of just being a juvenile and into a fully developed human person and servicing your community that way. Okay? That's how I would categorize them, and you've categorized them. And if somebody told you the same story, depending on how you're relating to the storyteller, you would have probably recategorized it differently. Okay, so this is it here. This is the exercise. These were, I gave you 2 myths and then a history item, the one of Umi. Now, so you have the framework, yeah. So you know, you got to imagine you have something similar to this. So when your client comes in, and you're gonna say, okay, tell me your story. What's your story? Who are you? And they're gonna start. And you know, in your head, you're gonna be, okay, this is the hua. Or maybe, and as this person goes on into the story, goes, oh no, this is the hua. or you think this is the ha'alele, but as they begin to disclose more about their life, you go, oh, the ha'alele was even here. So things will move as you begin a relationship with that client. And as the client begins to get more familiar with you and trusting you, then more will get disclosed. And then you see, so this framework is not a one-time shot. It begins to evolve. And then in a huakai, you know, the huakai piece, you have multiple huakais. You find that this is where it gets very confusing. Because step one, you have hua, and then you have ha'alele, then you have huakai, you have hua again. But this time, it's a kai means sequence. So, you know, in a journey, one journey gives birth to many other journeys. So sometimes our clients may begin this journey of harm, and then in the journey, they meet up with the wrong person, and maybe they get pregnant, and then they begin, now they start another journey within the bigger journey, the journey of being a mother, and then a single mother, and so her journey continues, and she begins another journey. And then she might begin to go, you know, there might be something else in the family that happens in her life. So the huakai is very complex. It's charged with many journeys. So it does get, the thing is, we have to help identify the big journey. What is the big journey? And then all the small ones, so we put the small ones in context. Because there is a difference between a big journey, the macro journey, and the micro journeys. And people get confused. When they get confused with micro journeys, when every hill is a mountain, they get lost. Versus that's a mountain, and these are just little hills. These are little pebbles. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time, Illinois, but we have a case study, a fictional case study. And what we want you to do is, Illinois, I'll leave it with you. Can you take care of this, please?
Absolutely. So I just shared another link with you all, and this will be our case study. So this is kind of, there are two here, and this is just to kind of look at personal stories of healing. And these have to do with either substance misuse or mental health or just that healing journey in general. It's just to kind of get used to looking at people's personal stories. So we're going to break you up into breakout groups, and we'll do about 4 or 5 people per breakout group. And then if you're in an even number, you can do case study 2. If you're in an odd number breakout room, you can do case study 1. Or if you want to switch, do whatever you like. And then I've just kind of created little pieces here where you can just click on your group. And if you double click on it, then you can kind of fill in what you'd like, what pieces of the H's that you have identified. Does anyone have any questions before I break you into breakout rooms? And we'll take about 15 minutes for you to do this, and you can kind of talk amongst your group members and decide what you think fits in each space.
Yeah, so this is again, exactly as Illinois said, this is a group activity. So, and this is just to exercise, you know, in smaller groups. And have the discourse to say, oh, is this a hua or is this a ha'alele? What do you think? You know, and again, it's a collective discussion. So if you're only hearing yourself, then you might want to make room to, you know, for other people to contribute to this discussion. Okay, and again, as you already know, there are no errors. So don't feel like, you know, this is gonna one group has to be exactly looking like the other groups, but the outcomes that's not how it works.
Yes, mahalo. Okay, I'm gonna break you up into breakout rooms, and I'll bring. Okay, then now we can just kind of cruise through. What does anyone want to share from case study 1? What they got?
Our case study was about a Native American wahine who was raised an alcoholic mahalo for the notes. She was raised an alcoholic, didn't know anything else outside of being alcoholic. She was in fact given bottles filled with alcohol. The ha'alele happened when she actually was invited to a conference, because despite her upbringing in an alcoholic environment, she actually was doing really well in school, and she was invited to this conference. And from there, it opened up her eyes. She got to see that there's so much more than alcoholism, and was able to connect to more opportunities outside of that. And she got involved in some other things like sewing and, just knowing about her culture, and even kind of led her eventually into like a higher power after that. So that was part of her huaka'i, and ha'alele, then huaka'i. Huaka'i, so she gained insight, yeah, and she pledged to remain sober. So and my group, my hui, if you have anything to add, you can add in anything I forgot. But she basically declared at one point later on, ho'ina, she's like, no more power already, I'm done. And she even told her husband, is like, I'm not going for that anymore. And then she decided to get her BA in behavioral health administration or health administration. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at, can you hear me? Okay, so again, the ha'alele is, of all the components of this framework, ha'alele is like needle point. And I'm looking for it in case study what? And it's at the point when she realizes, I am an alcoholic. So, part of her going on this journey was part of her schoolwork. She didn't see it as, but it's almost like Hiyaka. Hiyaka was sent on a journey only to find out that she was on a journey of life. She thought she was doing an errand. So this case study, she's, her hua is, yes, she was raised this way, and her first steps were taken drunk as a toddler, and then she performs well in school, and because of her performance, she's invited to this event, and then something happens, and she uses the word epiphany. I was an alcoholic. That at that point, that's where you put that's the ha'alele. I was an alcoholic, and everything after that was to grow outside of it. That began the huaka'i. So everything outside of that sentence is all huaka'i, when she started to assess her life, looking at putting herself in better environments, falling off the wagon a few times, even to the point of telling her husband, if we have a relationship, you need to stop what you're doing. That's a lot of power. She wouldn't have probably not been able to do that early on. She needed a life of huaka'is, falling off and getting back on again. And then the children helped, and for some people, the huaka'i, they need something bigger than themselves. So they join halau, or some people they become, they go to church and they start to have a relationship with God or gods, because they need, nobody else in their family can help them. They need something a whole lot more bigger than that. And so that's all the huaka'i. And the ho'ina is greatly at the end, she talks about, she has a ha'ina for grandchildren. She stopped the cycle. She stopped the alcohol traveling within her cycle, and therefore the cycles of her family. And so, yeah, but that ha'alele is that very point that she's sitting there and she's thinking she's on a class excursion, and she goes, oh my Lord, I'm an alcoholic. That must have been scary. But then she didn't want to be one. So that was even better. She didn't want to be an alcoholic. So yeah, this is probably similar. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it sounds like some of my family. Scary, it's real. It's real. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to see if anyone from group 2 or from case study 2 wants to share. Anyone? Don't be shy.
Myself, I had a difficult time with this case study only because because I'm unfamiliar with this profession and the healing piece. My question is how can in my mythic world, there's something that has to be a hua that triggers anxiety in the first place, and that anxiety is not necessarily the cause, but perhaps an effect. Am I wrong? Can people just have anxiety attacks because it's they're created, or there's something that triggers it?
I will defer to some of the much more educated people in this field in this audience.
Can you help me understand that, please?
Yeah, anxiety is normally brought on by a trigger, and it has to do with the fear of the unknown, or the fear of surprise.
Okay, great. And I do know that one of my daughters are, you know, they're like easy to go, you know, they don't need too much orientation. They'll step into the unknown and they're fine. But one of my daughters you know, she needs to be oriented for everything. She wants an agenda. She wants detail. Yes. She doesn't want to, she's born more like me, and my other one is born more like her mother. And it gives us anxiety. Although we are very showy on stage, stage is a safe place for us. Off of stage is, you know, we have a difficult time being with strangers. And so, and I'm looking at this case study, I would think I would have to figure out my first panic attack. I would have to figure out, for me to understand the hua, would it be part of the process to actually inquire a little bit more, like what are some of the triggers that brought on anxiety? How would I find the hua, the cause of the anxiety? Because I think the anxiety is not the hua.
Right. I felt like dying. That is a worry that may have come from a doctor visit or something, or what the doctor diagnosed. And her mind start to just concentrate and worry about that in her mind, and build up the anxiety and the tension of, well, who else in the family got this? How did I get this? What's going on with me? Am I going to die? And those kind of self-answered search for discovery is creating the anxiety because it's unknown.
So, Shirley, thank you. So right there, I remember it was, I remember it like it was yesterday, my first panic attack. I was 8 years old and I felt like I was dying. So it was the fear of dying.
Yes.
But it'd be interesting to find out, where did she get exposed to it? How did she get exposed? Did she, you know, because sometimes as kids, we're taken to the church, worse yet, somebody's house in the 60s and the 70s. They used to, you know, the dead people still be in their homes. They would have to go visit them, and then we're lifted over the casket and we gotta kiss the dead body goodbye. The family takes photos. We take family portrait with the dead person laying in state. And I could see how traumatizing that could be, and how it could drive anxiety. But thank you, because it wasn't clear. And I was trying to figure out, where's the hua in this? And it possibly is her fear of dying. I guess I would like to know, what was her first exposure to it? Was it, you know, through media, or was it through an experience? Okay, thank you.
Yes, mahalo. I appreciate the kākou efforts of everyone, you know, as I am still, you know, learning in this field. I just recently graduated with my MSW. So I know many of you are seasoned professionals in the field. So I mahalo you for sharing the ike that you've built and over the years. So mahalo for that. Okay, so in our last few moments, we just kind of wanted to talk about next steps. My notes here. So I want to first, since we're running out of time, I want to drop the evaluation and everything into the chat. So this is our evaluation and attendance verification for those seeking CE credits. It will also, as this is our last session, it will also ask you a few questions. If this is the last session, please take me to the post test. And we're just asking that you fill in those things. As you might remember in the beginning of this series, we asked you to fill out a pretest. And so this post-test helps us to kind of gauge how impactful and effective these learning series were. And then our last kind of request to everyone is just thinking forward about where are the places that we could continue to help support this journey. What might you be interested in continuing to engage on this learning journey? I've mentioned, as Tangarō has mentioned, that I learned this when I went to Hawaii Community College in Hilo, and it's made such an impact on my life and my educational journey, as well as my own healing journey from substance misuse, and then now brought it into my career now at Kapolalokahi. And I've noticed from everyone, it seems like everyone else is really interested in the implications that we can utilize this in both our personal and professional practice. So if these are things that you would be interested in, please let us know via chat, send me an email directly, add it into the evaluation, all of the above. It would really help us to understand and engage our next steps. We've had a few conversations about what that might look like. Including, maybe creating a certification course where we can certify you in being utilizing this framework in your personal and professional life, as well as maybe mentorship or other engagement activities. And so, yeah, we just really would like to hear from you. And Tangarō, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, and thank you very much for helping us grow. Kaʻao has gone way beyond just it started with my personal need to find out who I was and what was my contribution. And I coined this framework when I was a doctoral student, because I needed that journey, the doctoral student, to get me away from Hawaii, so that I could figure out who I was. And so it's very personal. It didn't come from the East Coast. It didn't come from the West Coast. It came from Hawaii. It came from our families. It is a result of asking the ancestors to please decode the messages in these songs and stories that we've been dancing and naming our children after, and all of these things. So we have a cultural accountability, and that's what I need to invite you into. So this is not a subscription where you can just get something and just subscribe to it and whatever. This is really an invitation into preserving something that's very indigenously Hawaiian. And it's indigenous to Hawaii, the framework, the words, the stories, but it could be applied everywhere. But I'm asking you, if you see yourself using this as you move forward, formally or informally, please do know that you're extending an ancestral intention. That's why those ancestors left us these stories. That's why they left us this framework. So we invite you to, whether you're Hawaiian or not, whether it doesn't matter. What matters is that we know that this process is a Hawaiian process, and if we can use it in our lives to make us better people and better professionals, then beautiful. But let's honor Hawaii, and let's try to make sure that we don't, that it's used as intended to bring people's spirit back into their narrative. Not necessarily religion. Some people need religion to get their spirit, but just the ability to connect to oneself and to one's environment in ways that are healthy and sustainable. So that's all. It's an invitation to contribute to the spirit of this Kaʻao, this Hawaiian process. Mahalo Anui for this information that you've provided me. I've never had such a concentrated group of people. So, this is, Kaʻao is really growing, it's working. Let us know how we can make it work better. And, but mahalo Anui and Lilinoy. I like working with you. You're such a great team. You guys are so efficient. Mahalo nui.
Mahalo nui to you. This has been such an incredible experience and kind of everything I had always dreamed of ever since I was in your program. So this is really exciting for me, and I hope that we can continue to work together on this and see what how this can grow. So mahalo nui for first of all for creating this entire framework. It's amazing, and mahalo for joining us on this journey and being a part of this and guiding us. And yeah, just mahalo nui.